Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great pleasure and enthusiasm I bring you the FootballScoop Podcast, Week 3, look ahead. Scott Roussel, your host today. We are blessed to have the entire FootballScoop staff. We've got college football experts, Zach Barnett, John Brice, as always. And today, for the first time in nearly 2 years, we are graced with the Doug Samuels. Doug, high school head football coach in the great state of Michigan, had a pardon from appearing on the pod until as long as they kept winning. Last year, they went undefeated in the regular season. This year, they started off undefeated. Had his first loss in nearly 2 years. And hence, he's here.
Here I am. Yeah, good to be here.
We were glad to have you, but it was better when we didn't have you for the obvious reasons, Doug.
Amen. Appreciate that, JB.
Feel the same way. All right, guys, today on the podcast, what we're thinking about doing is we're going to drop some early season feelings. Where do we stand? Where's college football? What's going good? What's not going well? You know, what's interesting as we look ahead, and then let's talk some week 3 in a couple of games, some potential upsets because I think they're quite a lot actually this week. I'm sorry. We could talk about picks from last week when somebody did exceedingly well.
Who's in first?
That would be me if we did exceedingly well. And this is going to be the week that separates the boys from the men. This is a tough week, guys. I'm telling you, somebody's going to win 5 out of 15. Somebody's going to win a lot more. Once again, assume that will be me. All right, let's do this. Let's go to our college football experts before we turn back to Doug and I, who are just a couple of dudes just trying to get wins. College football experts, give me some early season thoughts. What have you seen on the field? What intrigues you going forward? Zach, why don't we start with you?
I guess first off the top is it's 2 weeks in, so you got a caveat with that. But right now, Georgia looks like the best team in the country. Certainly the most complete team in the country. And they absolutely tore Oregon apart in week 1. And maybe that's just a case of Oregon not being that good, which we'll get another answer towards that this week. But, I mean, they have tons of athletes, and they play extremely hard, and that's going to be a really tough out for anybody. And so I guess my top line number one thing is right now Georgia again looks like the best team in the country.
JB, give me some thoughts.
Yeah, I like that. I think for all of us, Scott Frost got fired a lot quicker than any of us imagined. I honestly thought the Huskers would be undefeated going into the showdown with Oklahoma. Clearly not the case. In fact, you know, Nebraska couldn't even wait an extra 3 weeks to save $7.5 million, which is probably a podcast in and of itself. Otherwise, I think USC is really close to being able to say they're back, and especially with what Lincoln Riley has that offense doing. And beyond that, Texas A&M has already underachieved again, and Notre Dame has got to find some footing soon.
Texas A&M has underachieved again. You went there, huh?
Yeah. You can't do you can lose that game. You cannot be physically dominated and allow a Sunbelt team to come into your house and hold the ball for 42 minutes.
And have no offense at all.
Right. None.
Yeah. Doug, you got any early season thoughts to college football?
Yeah, and I think I look at things through a little bit different of a lens when I'm watching college football from the coaching perspective. I think JB hit on something with USC that's really good. Lincoln Riley has got the offense really cooking there, and I think some of the things that he does with their screen game and using their gap and their GT counter series to set that up has been really, really good. I know a lot of coaches are out there talking about it now. And then I think from the group of 5 level, Kevin Barbay at Appalachian State, his first season there, is doing an outstanding job. Scored over 60 points against UNC and Gene Chizik, and then to score just enough points to win. That's all you really have to do as an offensive coordinator when you've got a defense playing lights out. To beat Texas A&M last week, I think he's really making a name for himself, making a splash in that first year there.
I'll tell you an observation that I feel like I'm seeing the fruition of so much money at the bigger conferences. You're really starting to see the effect of that. I'm seeing a significant separation. I don't think this is great for the game, to be honest. I've been saying this for a couple of years. You're seeing the SEC, the Big Ten, some of the bigger programs of the ACC or the Pac-12, perhaps even the Big 12, really separating themselves from the group of 5 and some lower programs. it's almost like you already know who the top 20 is going to be, if you know what I'm saying, and some teams fighting on the periphery. But I don't know if that's great for the game. I think competitive balance is good for the game, and we'll see where this goes. Clearly, it's going opposite of what I think is good for the game. So the game will morph and everything will work out fine. But I mean, you're seeing strength where you would expect strength to be, and strength follows the dollars. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Except in College Station.
Yeah, well, no, I was going to say that's accurate, but it's also coming on the heels of a weekend where 3 Sun Belt teams won at 3 traditional powers, and to me that's the transfer portal. So yeah, the NIL is driving some big money, but one thing Charles Huff shared with me, and I should have mentioned him because I think he's going to be one of the next Power 5 rising head coaching stars. But he said, used to you recruit a kid all through high school, and if you don't get the kid and he goes somewhere else, that's the end of it. If you see him down the road or play against him, you wish him well. He said now all these coaches are maintaining those relationships because of the transfer portal. It's the great equalizer. You don't know who's going to go into the portal. I think when you look at Marshall's roster this year, there's clear evidence that staff and Charles Huff had a lot of great relationships. They were able to infuse it, I want to say, with between 40 and 45 new players this year from last year. And now they're 2-0. They should be 3-0 after this weekend, and they're cooking. So I do agree with you that especially because of NIL, it's driving the haves and the have-nots. But the transfer portal, I think, is going to keep some of those fringe teams able to be more active if they have a really savvy approach to it.
Amen. Why don't we transition a little bit to week 3? Give me some thoughts. I'm going to give you guys, and I'm just looking for quick hitters here. Give me some thoughts on top 25 games. And I'm going to go quick. Personally, I think Georgia pounds South Carolina. Georgia's like a 25-point favorite. Any thoughts on that one real quick?
Nail on the head, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why
Arkansas physically overwhelmed South Carolina last week, and I think Georgia right now is every bit as physical on the offensive side and a little more physical than Arkansas's defense.
Michigan has UConn at Michigan. Michigan's going to roll. Zach, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I think Michigan has been a surprise this season. They were kind of in that group of lower half top 10 teams, but they look like through 2 weeks they look like another Big Ten playoff contender. And with JJ McCarthy entrenched as their starter, I'm excited to see where this team can go now.
In Zach's on the line piece, he talks a lot about this Oklahoma-Nebraska matchup. Nebraska, is just going to put it all out there. Oklahoma has been a shaky, 2-0, struggled on the road last year. How about that one, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, my whole conceit of the piece is that, Mickey Joseph, former Nebraska player, former Nebraska quarterback, started coaching in Omaha high schools. Like, obviously, he's waited a long time for this opportunity, and now here it is. He's got 9 games, 3/4 of a whole season to go out and, make this team his own. So I think the message has got to be, guys, let's go out there and play like we've got nothing to lose and everything to gain, because that's the reality. And they can put all the negative feelings behind them with a win on Saturday. Now, they're not going to have the better team, but Oklahoma is not as good as their number 6 ranking. Like their first 8 carries against Kent State, they gained 14 yards, and they didn't score on Kent State till the final drive of the first half. So this is not an unbeatable team by any stretch, and I expect Memorial Stadium to be excited just for something different. And I think this is an opportunity to go out and for the players and the coaches to be like, guys, we're better than what we've shown, and let's go out there and prove it.
I firmly expect a significant number of upsets this weekend. Be interesting to see in the Football Scoop picks, which will come out later this afternoon, if anybody is riding the big corn. Youngstown State, Kentucky, current most favored son, Mark Stoops returns home. Vince Marrow as well. I enjoyed that reference in your article, Zach. Any thoughts on this one, guys?
Kentucky building off a huge win at Florida, but still has some issues, especially on its offensive line, that it needs to get sorted out.
Baylor went to battle with BYU. Is it possible they're exhausted and they're overlooking Texas State this week?
No, not Dave Aranda.
I agree. Texas State doesn't have the horses. to run with Baylor, even if it's a Baylor team that's beaten up from last week.
Dave Aranda is the most cerebral coach in college football. I don't think he overlooks very many people or teams.
Just about every coach that I know loves Kalani Sitake. His team, they just work. Grown men, responsible, go do your job. And they do, and they battle to give everything they got. They're at Oregon. It's a very exciting football game, I think.
I'm glad that it's in the afternoon. I think it's in that 3:30 Eastern window. So we don't have to wait till 1 a.m. to see who wins this one, because I think BYU is going to go on there and handle business against an Oregon team that's still very much figuring things out. BYU knows exactly who they are. It's a team of grown men, and I expect them to go out and play. They've won 5 straight games against Pac-12 teams, and I expect them to make it 6.
Doug, while we're talking about BYU, I would love to hear your thoughts on what it is that makes Kalani Sitake so effective, and just maybe how difficult it is for a team on a week in, week out basis to face a program with the physicality and determination of BYU.
I can't remember who said it. It was a number of years ago, but they talked about being physical to the point that you feel it the week after, in the game after. And I think that's the brand that BYU football is playing right now. And Kalani Sitake is just a super likable guy. I think he connects with the players very well in a way that, some older coaches can't. He's still young and kind of has that edge to him. But he also, when he's got that look in his eye that he means business, you're not testing him at all. So he just seems to have a way to kind of walk that fine line as a coach. And I think the coaches that find a way to do that have the respect of the players, and the players are going to go out there and play hard for him. And that's what you've seen his entire tenure there.
He runs a first-class program too. He treats everybody with respect, takes care of everybody appropriately. He's doing things the right way. I have to applaud him. I think he's doing a great job out there. Ole Miss has Georgia Tech. At Georgia Tech, Ramblin' Wreck, shock them?
I think that's possible. It's exciting. Look, Georgia Tech was right there with Clemson deep into the third quarter, and then the Jackets lost some field position stuff and had some bad breaks go their way and sort of lost their identity. But when you talk about Lane Kiffin being able to dial it up for Ole Miss, and John David Baker, another really promising young coach on that staff, I'm curious to see what Chip Long and Mike Daniels and the Georgia Tech staff can do on the offensive side of the ball to counter that. If Chip is cooking and they've got their weapons as they need to be, they really like their quarterback, the Sims kid, who I believe started his career at Florida State. If they're cooking, this could be a really explosive, high-scoring, entertaining game.
Penn State is favored at Auburn. One of the 4 of us picked Auburn as the bold prediction. Shock the world. At least 10 wins. I'm going to stick with that. I think Brian Harsin gets the job done at home. I think it'll be a very good football game, like an exciting football game. There'll be some miscues. It's part of who those two teams are. But I like the Barn to pull it out at the end. Any other thoughts on that one? Nope.
It's the first time any Big Ten team has ever played at Jordan-Hare, which seems impossible, but it is. So it'll be a spectacle, if nothing else, just to see, the white helmets in an SEC stadium. We don't get that often.
How about that? Alabama's a 50-point favorite over UL Monroe. Moving on, Liberty and Wake. Is this going to be a great game?
I think last year it would have been, if you had Malik Willis taking on Sam Hartman. That would have been something to see. I don't think Liberty can hang with Wake Forest. Really looking forward to that Wake Clemson game. I think it's next week. Is that right, John?
I don't have it right in front of me, but it's coming up really soon. Yeah, and Hartman came back last week and looked good as ever as they hung 45 on Vanderbilt.
Toledo plays in the Horseshoe.
That'll be ugly. There'll be a lot of people there, but it's going to be ugly.
Ohio State scored 45 last week on Butch Jones's Arkansas State team, but you never got the sense that they're completely sailing yet. And they've had some injuries. A couple of those key wide receivers are potentially going to be back this weekend, including Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I'm anxious to see when Ohio State is going to cook with C.J. Stroud, because last weekend was the perfect opportunity for a C.J. Stroud and some other people around the country to step up and say, hey, the Heisman Trophy is not Brice Young and everybody else.
Ohio State's 40-3 all time against other FBS teams from Ohio, and all 3 losses came in the 19th century.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Ohio State losing this game. Toledo hadn't played anybody. Toledo doesn't have horses to hang in there with Ohio State, but could be interesting for a little bit. Could be. Who knows? Oklahoma State is going to handle Arkansas at Pine Bluff. I'm going to move right past that one because the next one is a big one, ladies and gentlemen. Bobby Petrino riding back into town. Play his Hogs.
And someone made sure it was family weekend that week.
Just wrong.
Yes, agree.
That's incredible, Doug.
Yeah.
And also, Scott, it is not lost on me that you literally just said riding back into town. Well done. Well
There was a
done.
little Harley action there. You just couldn't see it off camera. Oh, boy. Petrino's team's pretty good, honestly.
Yeah, they are. Missouri State, really good. Great game last week to outlast Jason Simpson's UT Martin squad. Of course, Missouri State coming off the FCS playoffs a year ago and look like they're bound for FCS playoffs again this year with a chance to make a run. But Sam Pittman's not going to let Arkansas let down, and he might at some point. I'm sure we'll all revisit the coaching hires going into the 2020 season. And right now, just off the top of my head, Arkansas going and making an unconventional hire of Sam Pittman looks as good as anybody's hire right now.
I'm interested to see how the Hogs come out if they just go, trying to overpower them, which I suspect they will to some degree. Their big guys should be bigger than Missouri State's big guys. They should be able to affect their will a little bit. Be interesting to see if they can just run over them. I think Petrino will have some stuff dialed up, to be honest. It'll make it fun. Tennessee's going to handle Akron. Akron's not very good. Texas Tech at NC State.
This could be one of those. This could be one of those games where it's someone's driving to trying to erase a 2-point lead with 40 seconds left. NC State, obviously, what we saw them last was hanging on by the hair of their Wolfpack chin to beat East Carolina. Tech had a huge culture win coming back to beat Houston at home. Now they go on the road. They've only won on the road against an AP-ranked team, non-conference team, once in school history. So a win here would be the second time. Tech's got the number 1 passing offense. NC State's got a top 15 passing defense. So I expect a great game and a great opportunity for Joey McGuire to start with the best non-conference season Tech would have had in a long, long time.
When I look at the games, picking through this week, the 2 hardest teams I have trying to figure out are Louisville and NC State. Like NC State always just seems like a team that's kind of has high hopes and then kind of disappoints. And then Louisville's, week 1 debacle with Syracuse, so it's just dominated the press clippings or the box scores. Those are the 2 hardest teams to figure out for me right now. So either NC State is going to rise and finally meet expectations, or they're going to struggle again. And I think this is the game where you find out who they are.
I saw a note. I have not followed up on this at all, but I saw a note that Syracuse second half schedule is just brutal. Like early on, they're gonna run out and have a really nice schedule, a really nice record early on, and then we'll actually see if they're a good football team at the end. It would not surprise anybody involved if halfway through the season, Dino gets an extension and they lose every single game. I don't know. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I haven't even looked at the schedule. It's just typical of Syracuse. Michigan State's at Washington. Heck of a football game. I expect a great football game. I think Washington is better than people know. People expect Michigan State to be really good. I don't know how it plays out, but I think it's going to be a really good game.
How do you feel about this one, Doug?
Yeah, I mean it's a long way for the Spartans to travel to go out to the West Coast, but the biggest concerns they had coming into this season were their secondary, which was made even worse by the lack of a pass rush last year. They were ranked near the bottom of the barrel. I think in their first 2 games, and again, it hasn't been great competition, but the pass rush has showed up. But it's going to be interesting to see how they match up with a team that is apples to apples, recruiting wise, and then also skill player wise. So I think it's going to be a good chess match, and I don't think Michigan, as much respect as I have for Joe Morad as a tactician, he didn't have the horses last week. So I think Kalen DeBoer and Washington, that'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I love the head coaching matchup in this contest with iron-willed Mel Tucker and what he's able to do with defenses versus Kalen DeBoer, who in the last 5 years has really emerged as one of the really scintillating young offensive minds in college football.
Yeah. I mean, it's a game where you don't see these teams play all that often, especially in this location, and they've both been really good against inferior opponents. So we'll see who's really that good. I'm really excited to watch this game.
Jeff Scott's squad is going to Gainesville. It's the type of game where, if Napier was a little bit further along in what he's doing there, you would expect Florida to handle pretty easily. And I think everybody kind of still thinks Florida's going to win pretty easily. Any chance Jeff Scott's squad shocks him?
Nope.
Okay, good talk. Thanks. Okay, moving on. Pittsburgh, Western Michigan.
Hey, look. Go ahead, Zach.
No, I was just saying Pittsburgh should handle business, but it sounds to me like John's going to tell me not so fast, my friend.
Yeah, I'm not going to go fully Corso here, but I will quickly remind of 2 things. Last year, after Pitt went down to Knoxville and got a big win on Rocky Top, the very next week, riding high, I think they lost like 44-37 at home to Western Michigan. This is the return game, and I believe Pitt is going to have to start its 3rd-string quarterback in this contest. So Bears watching. It's a night game, Saturday night there at Western Michigan and Kalamazoo. So it's a compelling matchup. It's not as easy as beat up as Pitt is through 2 games with West Virginia and Tennessee to say this is going to be a dog walk.
I'll tell you, I think Western Michigan's an exceptionally well-coached football team, too. Clemson's got Louisiana Tech at home at Clemson. Football game.
Yep.
An important game for DJ Uiagalelei to continue to put his stamp on the Clemson offense.
Agreed. All right, here's a big one, boys. Jeff Traylor's squad is going into Austin. Zach, I'm sure you have a few thoughts on this one.
Yeah, obviously, as you mentioned before, I mean, I think this is a very, very dangerous and telling game for UT. Obviously, Quinn Ewers is out, so UT is either going to start Hudson Card playing on Woodgen ankle or 3rd stringer Charles Wright, who's never thrown a college pass. UTSA has been vulnerable in the back end, so whoever plays quarterback, are they going to throw up the deep shots that should be there? And then I think this is going to be really telling for the UT defense. Last week they played incredible against Alabama. Was that because they were playing Alabama, or was that because they were a lot better than they were last year? This will be a great opportunity for the D-line. The interior D-line should be able to handle business. And if UTSA quarterback Frank Harris is going to test Texas' ability to play on the edges and in the back 7 to play cohesive team defense, and if they do that, they should win no matter who plays quarterback. If they don't do that, if it's the 21 defense all over again, then this will be a 4th quarter game. And every single road runner at one point probably imagined them playing for UT. Jeff Traylor is going to come in with a great plan, wanting to get a statement win for himself. So I think a 1-point win by either side is a great accomplishment.
I think this is a culture game for Steve Sarkisian in Texas for some of the reasons you just outlined last year, Zach. So how far has that culture come? How much have they grown? How do they handle both the relative success and disappointment of last weekend? So I think this is a really important culture game for Texas.
Zach, most college football players are roughly around 20 years old, roughly. So they were born roughly 2002. So they were about 8, 2010. 2010, you think all these guys were like, boy, I want to be a Horn?
That's a good question. That's a fair question. But my answer is I wrote in Nuggets or on the line, between 50 and 100%. I'm sure some of them wanted to be Aggies. Some will want to be Sooners, but I mean, the flagship. There's only one flagship.
I'm not buying your line, Zach.
Well,
Still love it. I'm not buying it.
Okay.
There's really only one UT, and it's the one that was founded in 1794 and helped your state gain its independence.
Uh-huh.
That was fantastic. All right. Miami is at A&M. I think A&M's like a modest favorite, like I don't know,
3.5 maybe or something.
Yeah. I'm not sure the world sees it that way. I know Mario doesn't see it that way. Is this going to be a great football game, or is this just going to be like, that happened?
According to Jimbo, all the players got to do is just execute the plays he's drawn up. It's on them to go out and execute. Like if they do that, A&M should win by 50. It's on the players.
What are your thoughts, Doug?
Yeah, I mean, I think I picked Texas A&M. Spoiler alert for our picks that are being published for this, but this was another one I kind of went back and forth about. I think like Zach kind of mentioned with one of the previous matchups, if this is year 2 or 3 for Mario Cristobal, I think it's a different story. But Texas A&M has a bad taste in their mouth, and I went back and forth. But again, if this was a little further down the line for Mario, I'd probably lean Canes after what I saw from the Aggies last week. But I'm going to roll with Jimbo this week.
I'm seeing it as a 24-20 type game, but I haven't decided who I'm going to pick on the left side of that ledger and the right side of that ledger.
I agree. I think that 24-20 is accurate.
Same way. San Diego State's at Utah. It's kind of a late game. Could be a good game.
San Diego State won last year.
Yeah, won't be a good game, I don't think. San Diego State's still reeling for obvious reasons, and they really got off to a disastrous start for their season, and I think Utah will just physically overwhelm them.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see.
We will.
All right, last top 25 game, Fresno State at USC. Could be a lot of fun. Fresno State, perhaps not as good as they've been in some other years. USC is starting to look like they're putting it together. Any thoughts on this one, guys?
Yeah, I think as much as we all believe Vegas is on the money with that A&M Miami line, and just 3.5 points basically makes it a toss-up on a neutral field. The last I saw this line was maybe USC 13.5 or something. And, I'm not advocating gambling, but I'm hammering USC all day long. Fresno had a really tough game last week. They lost literally on the last play of the game. We talked about it. I'm really infatuated with Oregon State here early in the year. But I just think USC, as we discussed opening the show today, is really humming on offense and will go up and down the field on Fresno.
All right, couple of games I'm going to ask you for quick hits on. South Alabama's at UCLA. Any chance South beats UCLA out in the Rose Bowl?
There's a greater chance that there's less than 10,000 people in the stands.
But I would say Kane has South Alabama believing and playing very physically.
I think so as well. I think South has a shot in this one.
Yep.
I really do. All right, ODU is at Virginia. Old Dominion, got a shot?
Okay, here's my hot take. Old Dominion could go win this game, sweep Virginia and Virginia Tech in the same month, and still not be the best team in Virginia because that's James Madison.
It's not a hot take. Not a hot take.
That's a savvy take, though. It's a savvy take.
All right, Cal is heading into into Notre Dame.
Huge game, obviously. I mean, Notre Dame starting the backup quarterback Drew Pine with Tyler Buckner done for the season, as we discussed on last Sunday's pod. Important for Marcus Freeman to steady things, get that footing. I've been around the campus this week, been around the program some. It's a ticked off group. They need to come out Saturday and show that being ticked off actually means something. It's a green out game. So I always love when Notre Dame wears the green jerseys. I think they're some of the best jerseys of football. So as a uniform nerd, I'm excited for the green jerseys this weekend, but a really, really important game.
John Summerall's Troy squad got their first dub last week. They're going to App. Not easy. Any shot, we'll say App overlooks Troy?
I don't think so. I think that's a pretty focused group. You've seen that the first 2 weeks. I don't think they're overlooking anyone at this point.
Yeah, there's some games where the players were every single one of their players when they met on Sunday and Monday. Every single app player was probably there 15 minutes early because they're so fired up.
That's awesome. Georgia Southern at UAB has the potential to be a great football game, I think.
Yeah, I mean, similar dynamic at Georgia Southern. Like they should go out and play their absolute best game this week, considering what they just did last week.
The Fighting Mike Leaches come to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to play the Louisiana State University Fighting Tigers.
Who wins, Scott? How do you view this game?
It's my belief I've been wrong on every LSU Mississippi State prediction in like the last decade, especially notably the one where Dak Prescott just, that was a while back, just dominated LSU in Tiger Stadium. It was one of the greatest beatdowns I've ever seen. And then LSU came back and damn near won the game, but Mississippi State was just destroying them. I've never seen domination like that in Tiger Stadium for a long time. So I have no idea. I think it has the potential to be a really fun game with a lot of points.
Isn't John Emery returning to the Tigers backfield this week as well, Scott? I think that's significant. I believe that's the case. And LSU needs that for its ground game and to give some help to Jaden Daniels.
Early on, there was discussion of 2 weeks. I don't recall if that's how it played out.
I was thinking BK discussed it on the SEC teleconference on Wednesday. I could be pulling a Roger Clemens and misremembering, but I think that's accurate.
When was the last time, and JB, maybe you'll know this, when was the last time that Brian Kelly saw a true air raid team? Like coming from the Midwest down there, I think that might be a recipe for disaster. You might have to go back to his Grand Valley days to find a true air raid team that he's seen. So I think that'll be an interesting storyline there.
Yeah, I don't think it's not been in the half decade that I've lived here in South Bend.
Mm-hmm. I got two more for you guys. How many points get scored total in the SMU Maryland game? 100?
I was going to say 80. I was going to say 80.
I'll say 91, over under 91.5.
All right, I haven't looked at the games we're picking yet, but if we're not picking this one, we should be. North Dakota State is at Arizona.
We are picking that one. North Dakota State has the third longest winning streak against FBS opponents of anyone. Going back to, I think, 2000, they've won 6 games in a row against FBS teams and haven't played one since 2016 because no one was dumb enough or brave enough to play them until Arizona right now. And I think North Dakota State gets it done again.
There's a reason why we refer to them as college football experts. Zach Barnett, John Brice have more information in their heads than most people could handle. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. On Twitter, he's at Zach_Barnett, John D. Brice 1, I believe, at Coach Samz. It's been a lot of fun. Coach Samz, we're hoping we're not with you next week because we hope you win again, and then you get another pass. And maybe we'll see you after you win a state championship.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Enjoy the weekend, boys. Football Scoop picks will be up later today. Enjoy the pod. Tell your wife, tell your mother, tell your friends.
And your enemies.